All right. So I have with me my friend and former colleague, Steve Smith, who is the managing director of growth at RepCap, which is a content marketing consultancy that is a huge player in the HR tech space. Been around for a long time. Steve, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to HR Snacks.
Joel, great to be here. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, you as well. Steve, you are based in St. Louis.
Yep, Gateway City.
Gateway City. All right. So why don't you tell the listeners a couple can't miss spots to grab some good St. Louis barbecue, some good St. Louis ribs?
The barbecue scene is very polarizing in Missouri. There's definitely the Kansas City versus St. Louis thing, which is like the East Coast rappers versus the West Coast rappers.
Oh, yeah.
It's serious business, but the St. Louis barbecue, if you come here, you got to get the ribs and you got to go to Pappy's Smokehouse. They are just fantastic, hands down a winner. So when you get through St. Louis, that's where you need to go.
Pappy's Smokehouse. All right. See, already adding value to the listeners. So I love it. Steve, you have one of my favorite newsletters in the industry, Work Tech Weekly. You've been at it for a few years now, collating all of the events, what's happening, and also adding a lens of what that actually means and trying to make sense of what we're seeing trends-wise across the industry and what happens after these big events. So you didn't make any of your own predictions, but you've collated. I know being in the prediction business got a little sketchier after the pandemic hit. And people's batting averages, I think, went way down. But the list you put together, I really enjoyed. I read through a lot of those. What are some of the predictions that really stand out to you that you think hold the most weight?
Yeah, and I think when you're looking at the HR tech and work tech industry, one of the things that I think stands out is the year ahead, there's been a lot of talk about IPOs. You started to see some companies go public last year, and I think that there is a lot of talk about it. They're bringing up companies like Rippling, Gusto, Deal, Notion, Canva, and I think those are all IPO candidates. But I think what is sort of noteworthy is if you go back 20 years ago in the tech industry, going public was the ultimate goal, and I think a necessity in order to cash out and maximize your value. And I just don't think that's necessary anymore. I think that there is actually a lot of desire for companies to stay private so they don't have to go through the regulatory scrutiny. And with secondary stock offerings, I think that it makes it easier to do than ever. There's two ways to look at it. You can look at it from a vendor perspective, and you can look at it from an HR tech practitioner perspective. I think from a vendor perspective, it changes the calculus of how you're evaluating partnerships. I think it's changing the calculus of how you're evaluating growth. And I think that it definitely factors into how you are getting into ecosystem plays and how you are looking to manage your own growth strategy when you're looking at some of these big companies. From a practitioner perspective, it's the same thing. Who are the players in the ecosystems of the vendors that you're considering or choosing? And I think it's important to choose carefully, and knowing that what's the business trajectory of a company is important, because you have to think about what's the long-term viability of any vendor selection that I make.
Yeah, because a lot of the decisions that are made at the investment level have a real impact on product, on the direction of the company, and even things like whether they expand out beyond their core offering and how that impacts that functionality, that technology, that service offering.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that especially you're seeing a lot more of an overlap between HR tech and work tech with fintech. So you're seeing Chime's a great example, where it just came out of a solid fintech background, but now they're starting to get into things like employee benefits and really getting more into core offerings. Or even a company like Intuit, that if you ask anybody on the street even a year ago, they say, is this a work tech company? And they're one of the largest payroll companies in the country, but very low key. And so it's that expansion is really changing a lot of dynamics in the industry.
Oh, 100%. And so it's a good example of how these acquisitions can play a big role and impact. They acquired MailChimp, they acquired GoCo to beef up what they're doing on the enterprise side. They're trying to hold on to these customers that they feel like may have grown out of the QuickBooks service, payroll service. And it's very strategic. They're putting together a really compelling offering, building out what they're doing on the HCM enterprise side there. But that's a perfect example of how these investment strategies have a real impact on customers downstream and the vendors you choose.
You said it better than I ever could have. I think all of those things are absolutely spot on. And I think that's kind of connected to the second trend that I highlighted the other day in the newsletter. PE it really became a power player in HR tech and work tech post 2020, especially when you got into 21 and 22. You saw a lot of money going into the space. From a vendor perspective, I think that shift from work tech being primarily a venture-backed industry to a PE-backed industry has really changed both the go-to-market calculus, but also the product development calculus. They're going to really try to make sure that when they put a dollar into something, that they're going to see a multiple of that dollar come out the other end. And so I think that from a practitioner perspective, you really need to do your due diligence carefully.
What we're seeing working with companies across the HR tech ecosystem is there's just so much M&A activity right now. A lot of that's fueled from private equity, both on companies that are needing to find an exit and are wanting to have a strategic buyer in place that's trying to fill a gap on the product or service side, or companies that are looking just to pull in market share. That plays out really huge on the payroll side, payroll service side. You see these bureaus getting acquired all over the place. You saw UKG just make a huge bureau purchase from within their own ecosystem. It was a licensee that they purchased. And I think that's a big signal in the marketplace on what we're going to see, not just on the tech side, because there's still going to be companies purchasing, doing the buy instead of build evaluation on the tech product side. But I think even more so, we're going to see it on the service side, because that's the one that's harder to fill.
The thing that you were talking about, buy, build, partner, or how do you approach that, kind of connects to the last trend I was talking about. There's more money than ever out there, but it is really being centralized primarily in a few big players and primarily in a few big AI players. There's a lot of big dollars being thrown around, but because of the nature of AI and how capital intensive it is, you're seeing most of the money going into a few players, which means there's a lot of companies out there that are looking for capital that really are not going to have a place to go. And so I think that 2026 is probably going to be a giant year for mergers and acquisitions activity. I think it's going to, every year of this decade is going to pale in comparison. And I think that the ramifications of that are that, on the one hand, if you're a small vendor, there's going to be all kinds of considerations that you have. Do you partner up with a competitor or two competitors to create something bigger and try to survive this? Or do you just look for the best possible deal? Strategics are going to be out there looking for those acquisitions and for everything you were just talking about. And I think that then, if you're a buyer of these solutions, the thing to consider is, just because you're bolting something on or you have one of your vendors that's adding an acquisition on doesn't mean it's not going to go well. But I think that you should know what you're getting into, that the day that an acquisition is announced, that just means the work is beginning. Yeah. And there very well can be a bumpy ride. And I don't think that there's going to be any way to hide from it as a buyer. I think you're just going to have to look at it in terms of mitigating your risk.
100%. Steve, I can talk to you for another hour easily. These are all topics we geek out on, but thank you so much for joining.
Thanks, Joel. I'm really proud of what you've done with this podcast, and it's just great to talk to you and share some inside baseball convo about the industry. So thank you very much.